You won't believe what happened at Kensington Palace with just a simple white envelope. Inside was a DNA test result promising to reveal the final secret about Princess Diana, and when Kate opened the envelope, the shocking truth brought her to tears. Do you want to uncover the mystery that's shaking the entire royal world? If yes, leave a 1 in the comments. If you think this is just an unbelievable story, comment 0, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next shocking and mysterious stories. The envelope arrived unexpectedly, sent along with the usual morning correspondence at the palace, much like a familiar boring report from the royal advisors. But the seal was different, a heavy wax layer with an unfamiliar emblem, and the handwriting on the envelope lacked the usual formality and politeness seen in royal letters. Kate hesitated for a moment, thinking it was just a mistake, but something made her unable to ignore it. A heavy feeling, a strange silence deep in her chest. Finally, she decided to open the envelope. Inside was only a single sheet of paper with a bold, clear headline at the top, "Confidential DNA Report." Her hand suddenly froze as her eyes scanned each line of the text. The words sent a chill through her skin. Names she knew, phrases she never imagined would appear together. The truth crashed down on her, almost too unbelievable to accept. The DNA comparison results between the late Princess Diana and a strange name she could now never forget. Then the shocking conclusion appeared clearly and coldly, like a confirmation of what palace rumors had only dared to whisper. She gasped for breath, her throat tightening, and her hand trembled so much she nearly dropped the paper. Her hand went stiff as her eyes scanned the lines below. The words seemed to tear at her cold like a biting wind. Names she was all too familiar with. Phrases she never thought she'd see together. Consequences crashed down before her mind could fully grasp them. The DNA comparison test between her late mother-in-law Diana and a name she only vaguely recognized, but now could never forget. Then the shocking conclusion was written in clear, undeniable words, confirming what palace rumors had only dared to whisper. Her chest tightened, her throat went dry, and her trembling fingers nearly dropped the paper. She read it over and over, but the result didn't change. It was undeniable. What she held in her hands was more than just a piece of paper. It was a ticking time bomb wrapped in the quietest envelope, ready to break down the walls of Buckingham Palace. She stepped back, clutching the report to her chest as her eyes scanned the room. In the distance, the giggles of her children echoed down the hallway, completely unaware of the storm raging in her heart. Standing there, memories of whispered conversations at dinner and Charles's furtive glances over the years began to surface. Moments she once thought harmless now carried an undeniable truth she couldn't ignore. For months, even years, there had been whispers. A secret lineage, a child carrying Diana's blood, but not her name. Kate had always dismissed it as malicious rumors, but now in her trembling hands was proof that the royal family's perfect facade was hiding something dark. Something unspeakable. The timing couldn't be worse. Tensions between her and Charles had reached a breaking point over how she handled royal duties. But now she saw everything from a different perspective. Had he known all along? Was this why he tried so hard to control her image to keep her in line? What she had just uncovered could destroy the entire royal family. And now she understood why so many had gone to great lengths to keep this secret. Kate sank into the nearest chair, her eyes fixed on the damning words, her cheeks wet before she even realized she was crying. The soft sound of her own sobs filled the quiet room. She didn't know what to do, who to trust, or where to go from here. But one thing was certain, she would never forget this truth. As Kate clutched the shocking results in her hands, memories of Diana's vague warnings began to resurface, and all the pieces seemed to fall into place. Before her tragic death, Diana had left mysterious warnings not just for her sons, but also for the future wife of the royal family. Words Kate once thought were mere nostalgia now carried a terrifying weight. Before today, Diana had woven her fears into messages no one fully understood at the time. Her hurried, almost frantic writing held a truth too dangerous to be revealed. Now Kate recalled the notes from Diana's diary once displayed in an exhibition at Althorp. Those words had seemed like wistful sadness. But standing here clutching the DNA report, those words cut into her mind like a blade. Diana had written, "One day she will know. When she is strong enough, she will understand why I couldn't say this." Kate's hands trembled as more memories surfaced. Letters Diana had sent to her closest friend, someone Kate barely knew, spoke of something she had discovered late in her marriage, a secret she warned must be kept at all costs. Those letters could no longer be dismissed as moments of panic. They hinted that the firm would do anything to protect its image, even if it meant silence forever. The way Diana described them, not just as a family, but as a calculating, ruthless machine, sent chills down Kate's spine as she pieced it all together. Conversations Kate had once had with Charles years ago now took on a terrifying new meaning. Once he casually remarked that some parts of Diana's life were better left buried. The contempt in his tone made Kate too afraid to ask any more. But now she hears the disdain in his words, a quiet threat lurking beneath. It's not the sadness he carries, but the weight of knowing too much. Then a chilling connection emerges, something no one dared to say aloud, yet everyone avoided. Diana's time outside the palace secret meetings, the shadow of a man never mentioned, but always present in her story. Suddenly it no longer feels like a rumor, it feels like a prophecy. Images of Diana's public suffering and struggles flooded Kate's mind. She no longer saw them as just the tragic history of a princess, but as a coded message about survival. Kate recalled Diana's famous photos, the direct gaze into the camera, both defiant and filled with anxiety. Only now did Kate truly understand that gaze wasn't just meant for the world, it was meant for her. A warning, a message, a sign for those who would come after. Diana didn't just leave traces of sorrow and rebellion, she had carved a path for Kate herself, etched in whispers, diary pages, and meaningful glances. Until one day, when the time comes, Kate will have the courage to continue down that path. And now, standing before that path, Kate feels the weight of what lies ahead, pressing on her chest like a crown of lead. Determined to uncover the truth, she begins a journey through Diana's secret archives. But what she finds only thickens the fog of mystery. Hidden deep beneath the quiet corridors of the Spencer estate, Althorp is a room filled with secrets covered in dust and carefully guarded for decades. And now, Kate, under the guise of a quiet retreat away from the watchful eyes of the London media, has arrived there. To everyone, including William, she says she needs silence to reflect. But deep down, she knows the truth. She's here to face the ghosts of the past. The grand, ancient estate seems to hold its breath as Kate steps inside. Every room seems to whisper about Diana, about betrayed beauty, about secrets never spoken aloud. And in that silence, Kate feels a powerful pull. She knew the next piece of the puzzle was somewhere within these walls. After a discreet conversation with the elderly housekeeper who had served the Spencer family for decades, Kate was led to a rarely visited area. At the end of a long corridor stood a narrow door, its brass handle-worn hinges creaking from years of neglect. The woman paused, her eyes meeting Kate's as if to say something, a silent warning, before quietly slipping away. Now Kate was alone. As she opened the door, a cold breath of air escaped like the room itself, exhaling a truth hidden for many years. The room was small but heavy with history. Dust-covered bookshelves and neatly stacked boxes of files filled the room. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary old portraits notebook stationery embossed with the Spencer family crest. But then, in a corner, she spotted 3 boxes tied with faded silver ribbons bearing Diana's unmistakable handwriting. The inscription read, "For Catherine, when the time comes." Kate's heart pounded as she opened the first box. Inside were hastily written letters like confessions from a desperate woman trying to preserve her truth before it was erased. Each page revealed secret meetings, whispered conversations, and quiet investigations Diana had undertaken herself to uncover the truth behind her own life. Interspersed among the letters were faded photographs worn by time but undeniable. In the pictures was Diana and a man Kate had never seen before. The man's face stood out almost regal and strangely familiar in a way that sent chills down her spine. Beneath the letters and photos lay a carefully sealed envelope labeled simply DNA. Kate opened it and saw test results showing that Diana herself had begun the journey to uncover the truth, now consuming Kate whole. Diana didn't just suspect. She knew. Kate trembled as she stared again at the man's face, trying to memorize every detail. There was something in his eyes, something unnamed, but it made Kate shiver. He wasn't part of the royal family, but somehow carried a connection no one dared to mention. Then the truth, slowly, painfully emerged. Kate wasn't just following clues, she was walking straight into a storm Diana had long foreseen. As Kate traced the hints in the royal records, the truth revealed itself even more shocking than she imagined. The man's name was only whispered in the darkest corners of royal rumors. A man with Diana's eyes and a connection to the throne that no one dared to reveal. Do you think this is real? If you believe it, leave a 2 below. If you're skeptical, comment 5. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next secrets. Now enjoy the video. Kate stared intently at the photos in her hands. Her heart raced as the pieces began to fit together in an unimaginable way. The man repeatedly appearing in Diana's letters and photos, always by her side but never stepping into the light, had now become the center of a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. His presence in Diana's life was no longer speculation. She had written about him. Each page described secret meetings, stolen moments behind the palace's back. The way she wrote about him was more than friendship, more than rebellion. It was something intimate, clear, and deliberate. Then Kate saw the unimaginable, that face, those eyes, eerily resembling Harry. Not Harry himself, but like a grown, weathered version carrying the shadows of years in exile. The resemblance was so striking it gave Kate chills. And this very likeness had sparked the ugliest rumors. Could this man be more than just a confidant? Could he be the cause of the silent anger Harry carries, the feeling of never truly belonging? As Kate dug deeper, she searched for documents about this man, or at least what she hoped to find. But the official records had vanished. Faded documents' names crossed out dates, altered as if someone had meticulously erased every trace of him from history, leaving only whispers in the shadows. Driven by a desperate need for the truth, Kate sought out one of Diana's oldest confidants. After weeks of quiet searching, she finally gained access. At first, the woman refused to say anything, her lips pressed tight, as if a lifetime had been spent guarding secrets. But when Kate placed the photo on the table, something inside her shattered. With a trembling voice, she confessed what the royal family had denied for decades. The man in the photo was real, and his story was the final chapter in Diana's rebellion against the monarchy. He was not just a memory, he was alive, and he held the key to Diana's last act, an act that could now shake the very foundations of the British royal family. Each new revelation sent Kate's world spinning further, but despite the fear tightening around her, she knew she could not stop now. Though still shaken to her core, Kate did not falter. She knew the path she was on went beyond that of a royal daughter-in-law. This was a journey to seek justice for a woman swallowed by royal secrets. But the next discovery brought Kate face to face with the last person she least expected to betray her Charles. Beneath his calm exterior was a man who had known the truth from the very beginning and chose to bury it forever. Kate confronted him, her heart burning with anger, holding the files that had turned her entire world upside down. She found him sitting alone, quietly lost in thought, his hands clasped as if readying himself with excuses for an inevitable confrontation. At first, Charles remained unmoved. He didn't even glance at the papers Kate pushed toward him. With his usual cold detachment, he dismissed everything as fabrication, insisting Kate was swept up in rumors and the ghosts of Diana's mental struggles. But Kate did not back down. As she began reading aloud Diana's handwritten notes, the names, the dates, the secret meetings she had uncovered, Charles's expression cracked if only for a fleeting moment. But for Kate, that was enough to see what he was hiding. Then he let go of his mask, sighing wearily, and admitted everything. Yes, the man Kate had uncovered was real. And yes, he had been part of Diana's life in ways the public was never meant to imagine. But what stunned Kate most was Charles's confession that he had known all along. With a low, almost resigned voice, he spoke of a silence agreement made after Diana's final rebellion. A secret pact that lasted for decades to bury the existence of that man, erase all records, silence the rumors, and quell the press. It was to protect the institution, he said hollowly, as if those words could ease his conscience. But to Kate, that was no excuse. It was betrayal. Rage surged through her, making her voice tremble. She confronted Charles, accusing him of sacrificing Diana to save the crown, of letting her suffer, of letting her die, while he, the one who could have spoken up, chose silence. Kate's words cut through the air like a knife, each sentence a brutal truth she could no longer swallow. Charles remained calm, insisting that silence was a necessary price to protect the throne. That if the truth were revealed, the monarchy would collapse beyond repair. But to Kate, that price was paid in blood and tears of a human being. She saw herself in Diana, realizing she too had been caught in the machinery of silence and denial. Though always loyal, always upholding the royal image, Kate now understood she had been just another link in a system that trampled truth in the name of duty. A part of her shattered. Then the final piece came from an unexpected place, William's past. Kate knew she couldn't keep this secret to herself. That night, when the children were fast asleep and the palace corridors were silent, she walked over to William, her hands trembling as she placed the fateful papers in front of the man she loved. At first, William only furrowed his brow as if expecting a misunderstanding or some trivial family matter. But when his eyes landed on the names, the dates and the clear DNA results, his body froze. The silence between them thickened, suffocating, until he looked up at her. And with just one glance, she knew he had always known. He tried to deny it, whispering that it couldn't be true, that the family had suffered enough, that things like this no longer happened in modern times. but his memories betrayed him. Kate saw doubt melt into agonizing despair. William's face turned pale as memories of his mother, the whispered words in the dark, the resilient tears, the cries for help no one heard rushed in like a flood. And with them came rage. William was furious at the silent father, furious at the system that let his mother be suffocated to death over a truth that should have been spoken aloud. For the first time, he dared to ask himself, could everything he had ever believed about his family be nothing more than an elaborate lie? He thought of Harry, his younger brother, who always carried an unnamed wound, a doubt about his place in the royal world. And then the truth struck like a sword. If the DNA was real, then Harry's entire life, his identity, his pain, his distance, all stemmed from a secret that had never been named. William held his head, sitting in silence, caught between two futures. On one side, silence, continuing to live for the throne as if it were fate. On the other side was the truth recklessly exposing what Diana had desperately wanted to reveal, even if the cost was title family and the fragile stability of the royal regime. That choice seemed impossible. Kate grasped his hand, her voice choked with emotion. She begged him to see what was truly at stake, not just the throne, but justice for a mother. She reminded him of Diana's courage, of the path she had quietly laid out for them, filled with blood, tears, and hope. Diana had suffered in silence because no one dared to stand by her side. But now her son, and the only daughter-in-law she had ever chosen, had a chance to change that. "Don't let her last secret die with you," Kate whispered. "Don't let her suffer in vain." Her words hung between them like a vow, a promise with no turning back for either of them. William fell silent, his eyes shining with inner conflict, torn between the child who once vowed to protect his mother and the man carrying the weight of the kingdom on his shoulders. But before William could make a decision, an unexpected ally appeared, forcing Kate into a storm she never wished to face. While Kate and William were still struggling with their pain, Camilla quietly prepared her next move, a calculated step to protect the position she had painstakingly secured. In a palace sustained by silence and secrets, nothing can stay hidden forever. The whispers reached Camilla's ears even before the door to William and Kate's room could close. Camilla, the woman who had survived decades of scrutiny, scheming, and manipulation, understood the cost of power better than anyone else, and she had no intention of letting it all collapse over a secret from the past. Kate hadn't anticipated her. Camilla appeared unannounced in Kate's private room without knocking, her expression calm, but her eyes sharp and cold as knives. She congratulated Kate on uncovering the truth, as if Kate had reached some dark milestone. Then she sat down gently, her voice soft like a mother's, yet carrying an invisible threat. Camilla confessed that she had known Diana's secret for years, that she had quietly watched all the pieces fall into place and then turned it into power, staying silent when necessary in exchange for the position she now held. Kate couldn't believe her ears. Every word Camilla spoke was like a cold, sharp blade, not screaming or shouting, but enough to freeze anyone's heart. Then the real threat came softly like a breeze. If Kate dared to reveal the truth, not only would the monarchy collapse, but she herself would be destroyed. Camilla warned that if Kate stepped into the light, the old stories about her family, her past, even her marriage could accidentally be exposed. The air seemed to freeze. Kate, trained in the calm composure of royalty, still managed to keep her voice steady. She reminded Camilla that it was silence that had killed Diana, that the truth deserved to be revealed no matter the cost. Camilla only smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and then spoke her final words. "If you dare to go public, you won't just destroy the monarchy. You'll bring yourself down with it." That night, Kate couldn't sleep. Camilla's words echoed in her mind like poison, eroding her trust, but not extinguishing the fire in her heart. She could no longer remain silent. She could no longer live behind the dazzling curtains that hid murderous secrets within. And then Kate made a desperate but courageous decision. She would reveal the truth to the world. The next morning, a cold gray sky hung over Kensington. Outside the gates, the media had been secretly gathered. Breaking every royal protocol, Kate stepped out in a simple outfit holding the paper's DNA evidence that had shaken the entire palace. She began to speak, not as a princess nor a future queen, but as a woman demanding justice for a forgotten mother. She didn't tell Diana's story as a legend, but as a real woman, brave, wounded, and betrayed. She spoke of her journey, of the pain, the inner turmoil, and the whispers buried within the royal stone walls. Then, with trembling hands, Kate raised the DNA documents. She confirmed Diana had another son, a hidden heir. Cameras captured every word, every tear, every breathless pause. The world fell silent, then exploded. Within minutes, the news spread worldwide. Sensational headlines flooded the papers. Diana's last secret revealed: the rejected heir steps into the light. Kate Middleton breaks the silence, exposes the royal truth. And then a wave of support rose. Kate was called not just a princess, but the voice for Diana, something Diana herself was never allowed to be. Yet the biggest question remained: where was the secret son? And then he appeared. A man quietly stepped onto the podium, his face calm but resolute, as if years spent in the shadows had forged him into someone unstoppable. The world held its breath. He spoke briefly, but every word was like a hammer breaking down decades of lies. He called Diana his mother without hesitation, without apology. He thanked Kate for the courage he himself had never dared to have. He spoke of the years living fully aware of who he was, yet choosing silence to protect the memory of a wounded mother. And then, the question everyone feared but awaited: did he intend to claim the position that was rightfully his? He didn't answer directly. He simply said, "Blood can be denied, but it cannot be erased." Inside the palace, chaos reigned. William and Harry stood apart, their faces unreadable. Charles stood silent as a statue, while Camilla wore an expressionless face, though her eyes were cold as steel. The family that had once been united by unspoken rules was now torn apart by an undeniable truth. When the camera lights went off, Kate collapsed into William's arms, her tears soaking his shoulder while his tears silently fell. They both knew from this moment on nothing could ever go back to the way it was. Outside the palace gates, the public's reaction was no less intense. Some saw him as the rightful heir deserving of his place, but many others viewed him as a symbol of all the wrongs and injustices within the monarchy. Calls for answers, transparency, and accountability grew louder, demanding a serious reckoning that no statement from the palace could satisfy. Yet amid the chaos, there were also tears of empathy, grief, and solidarity directed toward Diana's son, who now stood openly before the public, no longer hidden away. As he finished his speech, the cameras caught a glimpse of Kate standing at the sidelines, her hand gently resting on her belly, silently promising to protect her children from similar suffering. Diana's image remained ever present in everyone's minds. Her resilience and sorrow were now acknowledged and honored. Her story was no longer just a cautionary tale, it had become a profound revolution. As the palace gates closed and the cameras faded away, one thing was certain: the monarchy would never be the same again. What do you think about this story? Do you believe the monarchy will be changed forever? Leave your comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel and never miss the next stories. Thank you all for watching until the very end. If you want to continue exploring untold secrets, remember to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. January 2026. The London sky does not bear the gray hue of its customary rains. Instead, it hangs heavy with an invisible pressure converging on the Supreme Court. In courtroom number 7, the air is thick with suspicion. This is no longer a story about glossy documentaries or controversial television interviews. We are standing at a historical crossroads where notions of privacy, loyalty, and the legitimacy of one of the world's oldest royal lineages are being placed under the microscope of the law. In a silence so complete that even hurried breaths could be heard, the appearance of a veteran figure in investigative journalism completely altered the balance. He is often described as an architect of hard truths, a man who never enters a confrontation without holding pieces of evidence as precise as a surgical incision. Public opinion is now raising a major question: what compelled such a seasoned dossier analyst to put forward assessments with such explosive impact? Could it be that behind terms such as Operation Cuckoo lies an entire system of hypotheses about lineage and past connections long obscured by the dust of time? In the area reserved for the central figures, observers have noted complex psychological shifts. A prince once renowned for his steely resolve now appears to be confronting shadows never before revealed within his own legacy journey. Alongside him, the visible unease of his spouse, an emblem of Hollywood glamour, has become the focal point of intense scrutiny. Today's video is constructed on the basis of investigative files, analyses from the international press, and hypotheses. This content is documentary and referential in nature, offering an objective perspective on one of the most seismic events of 2026. Some currents of opinion suggest that the emergence of the name Trevor Engelson, alongside analyses of the timeline from 2013 to 2018, is far more than a simple revisiting of the past. It appears to be opening the door to questions of a constitutional nature. If the hypotheses regarding overlaps within archival records have merit, are we witnessing a fundamental redefinition of the entire Sussex brand structure? The courtroom doors may be closed, but the aftershocks it has unleashed will continue to reverberate for decades to come. H. Is Operation Cuckoo a truth gradually coming into the light, or merely a harsh stress test for those who chose to step away from tradition? In a world where information and truth intertwine like a labyrinth, we are not here to declare right or wrong. We are here to witness the collapse of myths and the rise of new questions about transparency. And you, what do you see behind the tears and the sealed files in London? Leave your thoughts from the perspective of an objective observer. Don't forget to subscribe so we can continue unpacking the next set of files together. As the files covering the 2013 to 2018 period are opened, the portrait of an independent, self-directed woman, an image painstakingly constructed by the media, now appears to be facing a completely different reflective lens. In the world of investigators, nothing is accidental. Every footprint left in hotel corridors, every invisible signal from transcontinental phone calls is telling another story of connection. Under the guidance of an analytical mind as sharp as Tom Bowers, the gaps in Meghan's filming schedule in Toronto are no longer seen as ordinary days of rest. He advances a haunting hypothesis. Could the shadow of the past, the figure named Trevor Engelson, have remained present, like a silent satellite orbiting Meghan, even as new chapters of royal romance were being written? The astonishing convergence between unnamed journeys and familiar destinations from the past has created a symphony of suspicions. These are not baseless accusations, but a comparison of mechanical timelines, a method of analysis that any historian or lawyer would be compelled to take seriously. But what truly shook the walls of Kensington Palace was not the numbers, but the voices of the guardians of tradition. Long-serving aides, those who had devoted their lives to keeping the velvet curtains firmly drawn, now appeared to have chosen to step out of the shadows. Why would individuals who once regarded loyalty as a sacred creed decide to break their silence after nearly a decade? Perhaps the weight of what they had witnessed had grown heavier than even the most ancient rules could bear. Their emergence was like that of historical witnesses, offering unprecedented perspectives on what unfolded behind the glittering facade of a so-called love story of the century. The peak of tension centered on discrepancies in traditional protocol. In the centuries-long history of the British royal family, the birth of a new member has always followed the strictest procedures. Yet the records surrounding Archie's arrival now appear shrouded in a legal fog. Why were the validating signatures of royal physicians absent at key moments? Why were core details in the birth records mysteriously altered just months later? This is not mere curiosity about private life, but an inquiry into the transparency of legacy itself. In this grand drama, the prince appears to be portrayed as the most tragic figure of all, a man standing at the boundary between absolute trust and truths that are slowly fracturing. Could it be that he is becoming the central character in a script he himself did not write? As questions surrounding the birth records remain unresolved, Tom Bower delivers what he calls a steel punch to the silence of the courtroom. He declares that he is in possession of copies from the internal archives of the royal security apparatus figures, long regarded as the most tightly sealed eyes and ears in the world. This is not merely the monitoring of private life. In investigative language, it is the surveillance of the integrity of the royal perimeter ahead of a pivotal event. These reports appear to have logged unusual signals, the presence of figures from the past, at the very moment when a new glittering chapter was about to begin. Why? In the moment of direct confrontation with the Prince, Bower did not use the language of hatred. He spoke instead in the language of a philosopher of truth, when he stated, "The truth belongs to no one. It simply exists." London suddenly realized this was no longer a familiar family dispute splashed across the tabloids. This was a historical reckoning, a moment when masks are stripped away to reveal the true structures of power beneath. And Bower, holding the key to open Pandora's box, is leading the public deep into a connection with a figure that many had tried to erase from royal memory, Trevor Engelson. Why could a Hollywood film producer become a link capable of shaking the line of succession of a dynasty? Bower does not view Meghan as a victim. Instead, he portrays her as an architect of opportunity. Trevor Engelson is not merely a former husband. In Bower's investigative files, he is described as the keeper of the original blueprint. He was the man who stood beside her through a difficult decade spent chasing the spotlight. He understands every ambition, every habit, and even the hidden corners along this woman's path toward the conquest of power. Could it be that while the world and the prince himself was enthralled by a modern fairy tale, Security files were quietly recording a drama staged with absolute precision. The question Bauer posed before the court seemed to freeze the room. Would a skilled strategist ever truly sever an old line of contact before being certain they were securely anchored on a new island? Based on what he calls abnormal communication patterns, Bauer's investigation is gradually exposing a web of unnamed interactions. This is the very core of the lawsuit, where the truth about loyalty is weighed against personal calculation. Evidence of overlapping lines of communication not only destabilizes Meghan's position, but also raises a painful question about the prince's capacity for awareness throughout that period. The final months of 2016 through early 2017 were not merely a time of roses and flashing cameras in London. Behind the velvet curtain, Tom Bauer sketches a reality of parallel digital currents, P. Through encrypted communication channels and anonymous identities, a network of connections to the past appears to have continued operating quietly in the shadows. Why would someone standing on the threshold of a dynasty require such an elaborate contingency plan? Is this the instinct of a strategist who prepares for every possible scenario, or the preservation of a bond that cannot yet be severed? The most shocking element in Bauer's files lies in his analysis of the tempo of history. He places a large question mark over the unusual haste with which a formal engagement was established. In the world of dynasties, haste is often accompanied by invisible pressures from outside forces. However, Bauer offers a far more ruthless perspective. Could this have been a race against time to legitimize a biological reality? If the alleged overlaps in relationships are real, then choosing a harbor that confers ultimate power and status is no longer a matter of the heart, but a strategic verdict designed to secure the future. When it comes to Archie Harrison, Bauer does not resort to emotional language. He places the issue squarely within the legal framework of the Act of Succession. This is where cinematic plot twists transform into a national crisis. If suspicions regarding genetic congruence between the prince and the heir have any basis, we are no longer talking about a family secret. We are talking about the legitimacy of royal bloodlines and the integrity of the Constitution itself. A deviation in the genetic map at this moment could be seen as a rupture of national trust, shaking the very foundations of all privileges and titles. Bauer offers an entirely new explanation for the seismic events of 2020. Rather than citing privacy concerns or media turmoil, he characterizes Megxit as a strategic withdrawal. The true objective, he argues, was not the pursuit of freedom, but the removal of genetic secrets from the oversight of royal physicians, the traditional gatekeepers of stringent verification protocols. Leaving the stone walls of the palace for the freedom of Hollywood could thus be seen as an effort to shield a genetic illusion before physical traits begin to speak for themselves over time. Look at the prince in that moment, the man who built a fortress to protect his family, only to now confront the possibility that he has been guarding the most sophisticated lie of the century. Tom Bauer ends his presentation with a haunting question suspended in the hushed air of the courtroom. What does a son's sacrifice for his lineage mean if from the very beginning the foundation of that sacrifice was built on a distorted map? Why California? Why choose the land with some of the strictest privacy protection laws in the world? In Tom Bauer's analysis, the move to America's West Coast was not merely a journey in search of personal freedom. He calls it the construction of a legal fortress. California, with its stringent data privacy regulations, appears to have become the most effective shield against any probing into personal records. The ghost of the past, known as Trevor Engelson, is no longer a distant memory. It has become a living presence, steadily tearing apart the Sussexes' carefully laid plans for the future. F. Many people mistakenly believe that Buckingham Palace is a passive entity in the face of upheaval. But according to the records Bauer was able to access, the reality is quite the opposite. Under the reign of the late Queen Elizabeth II, an emblem of unwavering devotion to the crown's legitimacy, no ambiguity was ever permitted to exist within the bloodline. Bauer delivered a revelation that sent shockwaves through the courtroom as early as May 2019. Behind the public's celebration and joy, a heritage verification protocol was quietly set into motion. Under the guise of routine health examinations for a new family member, a genetic analysis process was quietly carried out. Its purpose was not curiosity, but to safeguard the survival and succession of the monarchy. So where are the results of that heritage verification? Bauer asserts that this report has never been made public. It was sealed by time and stored in the deepest vaults beneath the palace wine cellars, accessible only to those who hold the highest keys of power. The existence of this sealed report raises a painful question. Why was the truth not revealed as early as 2019? Why did the palace choose silence, a silence Bauer calls complicity, for the sake of survival? Tom Bauer's explanation carries the tone of a political philosopher. He argues that at that moment in time, exposing a deviation in the bloodline would have triggered a constitutional earthquake that no institution could have withstood. Truth, he suggests, was traded for stability. R. The palace chose to keep this secret not to protect Meghan, but to safeguard the sanctity of the royal legacy against the swirling tempests of global public opinion. Yet that silence seems to have become a ticking time bomb, and now under the spotlight of the 2026 courtroom, the fuse has begun to burn. Imagine the collapse of an empire where the very bricks of its foundation start to shift from their places. British royal history is no stranger to such upheavals. In 2019, the world had already witnessed violent waves tied to controversial associations involving senior members of the institution. But according to Tom Bauer's analysis, that was only the visible tip of the iceberg. If a new fracture were to emerge this time, striking directly at the lifeblood of inheritance within the line of succession, then the credibility of a 1,000-year-old institution would face an unprecedented trial. Standing at history's crossroads, those who hold the fate of the crown from King Charles to Prince William appear to have confronted an existential dilemma: should they choose absolute transparency and risk public trust, or opt for a form of strategic silence to preserve the structure of the institution itself? Bauer argues that the second path was chosen. This form of humane conservatism inadvertently gave rise to what he calls a media monster. The palace's silence itself became an invisible protective shield. When one side knows the other will never dare to speak in its own defense for fear of collapsing the foundations, media counterattacks through documentary footage and high-profile interviews begin to grow sharper and more ruthless than ever. Yet within this bleak tableau, Tom Bauer sketches a deeply tragic portrait of the prince, the man he describes as the most painful victim of all leaks. He uses the concept of a glass cage of illusions to describe Harry's reality. A man who chose to stand against the entire world, sever blood ties, and sacrifice every privilege to protect what he believes to be truth and love. But does he realize that he may be defending a meticulously constructed genetic narrative? Bauer advances a deeply unsettling hypothesis. Could the pure faith of a father be transformed into a tool for a power grab, one in which he himself is entirely unaware? Bauer's testimony about the secret DNA report is not merely an accusation, it is a wake-up call about the hollowness behind solemn rituals. If his analyses of a deviation in bloodline are well-founded, then Archie VII in the line of succession would become a stranger within his own lineage. The presence of a name in the line of succession without congruence of hereditary legacy would create an unprecedented precedent in constitutional law. It would turn oaths of loyalty into looming question marks and place the entire future of the modern monarchy in an extraordinarily precarious position. Content provided for reference/hypothetical purposes only. As the testimonies at the January 2026 trial draw to a close, we are left with a harsh reality. The price of the silence the monarchy has maintained for so many years is no longer gold. It has become a colossal debt, a block of explosives threatening to incinerate every legacy. In the world of dynasties, silence has long been a refined diplomatic instrument, but now it resonates like a wordless indictment. Look at the history of those residing in Montecito through a cold, objective lens. We are talking about a woman who has never hesitated to step into the fiercest legal battles to defend even the smallest fragment of her privacy. From lawsuits over unwanted photographs to taking on major media conglomerates over a private letter, she has consistently demonstrated an uncompromising resolve. But why, when faced with an allegation that could completely erase the reputation, title, and future of her own son, does that legal sword suddenly appear to have gone rusty G? Why, until now, has the Sussex office, normally hypersensitive to even the slightest tremors of public opinion, allowed terms like Trevor Engelson or Operation Cuckoo to circulate freely across global media? Before we dive deeper into the secret DNA report allegedly hidden in the palace wine cellar, I want to hear your predictions. Do you believe this is a truth slowly coming to light or merely a ruthless media attack? Leave a comment with the number 2 if you see this scenario as a tragedy for Harry, and 5 if you believe this is an uncompromising political chess game. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the final chapter of this case. Why has no defamation lawsuit been filed immediately to silence Tom Bauer, the man who appears to be wagering his entire career on these testimonies? In the modern world, there is only one way that is fast and absolutely effective at ending every conspiracy theory: a public heritage verification. A transparent biological authentication conducted under the supervision of independent authorities would be the decisive blow to protect Archie's legitimacy. It would put an end to all doubt. And yet, the decision to retreat into the shadows is raising a bigger question than ever before. Is this silence not contempt for the rumors, but rather a final fortress guarding a truth that cannot be confronted? We are standing at the threshold of a new era, one in which the deepest secrets of dynasties are no longer protected by stone walls. Is this the collapse of an illusion or the beginning of a necessary reckoning? Is the silence from Montecito the calm of the innocent or the labored breathing of a script racing toward its final act? The truth, no matter how long it is buried, will eventually find its way into the light. Could it be that counter-evidence cannot be produced simply because that truth never belonged to them in the first place? When we look back at Meghan Markle's legal strategy over the years, a clear pattern emerges: swift, decisive, and overwhelming action against any perceived intrusion. The current silence, therefore, does not bring a sense of calm. It creates a kind of auditory dissonance. It runs so sharply against her instinct for self-defense that it leaves a void filled with doubt in the public consciousness. OA. At the eye of this storm, Harry emerges as the most tragic figure of all. From anonymous sources, the image of a prince living in isolation within the Montecito fortress is deeply haunting. Try placing yourself in the position of someone who has wagered everything from titles and military protection to the most sacred blood ties with his father and brother. All of those sacrifices were made under an absolute belief in love and in his own bloodline. Now he must face a brutal prospect. If everything he has defended for so long was built upon a foundation of shifting sand made of distortions, then the collapse would not merely be an emotional wound, it would be the shattering of an entire life philosophy. If the hypotheses about a deviation in lineage were true, the consequences for Archie would amount to the most brutal stripping of identity. The child would not only lose a place in the line of succession, but also an entire world-view. Politically, this story has moved far beyond the boundaries of a single family. It has struck at the very legitimacy of the nation. Tom Bower has ignited a battle in which genetic records could become the spark forcing the highest authorities, such as the British Parliament, to intervene. In this game of royal power, the truth may be concealed behind layers of international legal secrecy, but history has shown one constant: the truth always finds a crack through which it can slip into the open. So, who truly holds the decisive card in this game of chess? Is it Tom Bower with his network of silent witnesses deep within the palace? Is it Buckingham Palace itself, pursuing a strategy of institutional preservation at all costs? Or is Meghan Markle the one holding the key, able to either fling this door of truth wide open or seal it shut forever? The courtroom doors in London may close, but the search for truth has only just begun. Will that truth be a gift of redemption, or a fire that burns away what remains of a love story once admired by the entire world? Can a verdict truly deliver absolute vindication, or will it become the final sentence that destroys a reputation forever? The first trial in London may have concluded, but its aftershocks have not faded. On the contrary, they are generating powerful shockwaves, seeping into every corner of the monarchy. At this moment, calls from Parliament for a national-level investigation are growing louder by the day. Constitutional experts have been summoned to re-examine one of the most sacred documents of all, the order of royal succession. Imagine the historical repercussions. If an official investigation were to be triggered, this would no longer be fodder for tabloid headlines. It would become a formal process of verifying an heir's legitimacy. At that point, proof of genetic congruence would be required as a mandatory procedure. Figures from the past, such as Trevor Engelson, could be compelled to step into the light and testify under oath before the law. Every communication record, every timeline from 2016 to 2018 would be placed under the government's microscope. This is an unprecedented constitutional crisis in the modern history of the United Kingdom. Behind the numbers and legal statutes lie profound human tragedies. For the prince, the psychological devastation is almost beyond words. Every moment of happiness, every cherished photograph, now seems veiled in a fog of doubt. Can a man who sacrificed everything to protect his family truly accept the reality that the fortress he labored to build stands upon a foundation that may not even exist? And for the young child, the most innocent figure in this maelstrom, this would be the most painful stripping of identity of all. If Bauer's hypotheses are true, the child's entire worldview and sense of origin would be shattered, leaving psychological wounds that could echo across generations. This legal process is in reality only the opening shot. Sources close to the matter indicate that Tom Bauer is still holding undisclosed trump cards correspondence and assertions of staggering weight that have yet to be revealed. At this moment, the Sussex legal team finds itself trapped in a paralyzing paradox. If they choose legal action, they would inadvertently open the door to the process of discovery in which genetic tests and personal records could be compelled into the open under legal supervision. If they remain silent, these allegations will act like acid, slowly corroding credibility and reputation over time. Buckingham Palace itself appears to be facing one of the most profound no-win dilemmas in the history of modern media. If they were to confirm the assessments outlined in Tom Bauer's files, they would inadvertently be admitting to a systemic failure in heritage verification spanning many years. Conversely, if they choose outright denial without presenting concrete counter-evidence, they would be pushing themselves into a weakened position against the trump cards held by a seasoned journalist like Bauer. In this chess match, the only clear beneficiaries may be the architects of news themselves, the media outlets enjoying a new golden age reminiscent of the post-1990s upheavals. But behind the sensational headlines lies a very real catastrophe for everyone involved. From Harry and Meghan to the future of those in the line of succession, all are being pulled into a vortex where the boundary between truth and legal maneuvering grows more blurred than ever. Will the truth find its way into the light through the final sealed files, or will it remain forever as fragments buried beneath multiple layers of power and institutional self-preservation? In examining these shocking details, we must use reason to pose the most fundamental questions. Tom Bauer is no newcomer. He is a figure who has spent a lifetime building a reputation on ironclad evidence. Giving sworn testimony in a court of law is an act that wagers not only one's career, but personal freedom itself. Would a mind as sharp as his truly risk everything on unfounded speculation? Another major question looms if all of these doubts are baseless. Why has the fastest and most effective solution, a transparent verification of biological origin, never been carried out? An independent verification process overseen by neutral parties would be the definitive end to every media nightmare. Prolonged silence, rather than a masterful legal strategy, now seems increasingly like a troubling signal of a truth too difficult to confront. If the palace truly holds evidence capable of fully exonerating the Sussexes, what reason could be great enough to justify keeping it sealed away in locked vaults? And why, in the frames capturing moments inside the courtroom, does the prince's face appear so haunted and anguished? Is that gaze an expression of outrage at injustice, or the fear of a man beginning to realize that the foundations of the world he stands upon are starting to crack? The London story of 2026 is not merely a lawsuit. It is a test of trust and truth in the information age. Truth always finds its own way to seep through the cracks of power. Why is it that at decisive moments people so often choose not to look one another in the eye? These questions never come with comfortable answers, and it is precisely that act of avoidance that has created a powerful gravitational pull, drawing the attention of the entire world toward London. What began as a royal love ballad, a modern fairy tale celebrated by all of humanity, now appears to be on the brink of becoming one of the greatest historical illusions of the contemporary monarchy. Tom Bower's testimonies are not merely legal words on a page. They are beams of light cast into hidden corners, exposing what had long been regarded as a meticulously constructed script. Ix. Whether you choose to believe Bower's evidence or dismiss it as the harshest media assault ever directed at the Sussexes, one truth is undeniable: the questions that have been raised will never disappear. They will echo through the historical record, planting seeds of doubt about everything we once believed regarding Harry and Meghan's journey. As Bower himself declared before the court, "The truth belongs to no one. It simply exists." No glossy media campaign, no legal threat, and no strategy of silence can bury it forever beneath the dust of time. For Harry, the tragedy lies in the sheer irony of fate. A man who spent his entire life trying to shield those he loved from public scrutiny he believes caused his mother such profound pain, now finds that those very efforts have inadvertently unleashed the most ferocious storm of scrutiny imaginable. For Meghan, who relinquished the crown to build a personal empire, this gambit carries life or death stakes. If the hypotheses of a hereditary discrepancy were to be substantiated, the entire structure of power branding and credibility she painstakingly built would face instantaneous collapse. And amid the vortex of adult calculations, the image of the innocent child Archie looms hauntingly large. An uncertain future awaits one in which personal identity is placed on the scales of power struggles. Ultimately, for the British monarchy, an institution that has endured wars and centuries of upheaval, this is the ultimate trial of fate. R. Can an ancient dynasty survive and maintain its legitimacy in an era of absolute transparency where biological evidence holds the power to rewrite history itself? We are not merely watching a court case. We are witnessing the fracturing of a myth. Truth is a bitter medicine, but it is the only thing capable of healing the wounds of doubt. Now we want to hear your voices, the most objective observers of all. How do you assess Tom Bower's sharp and provocative arguments? Is this an elaborate search for truth, or merely a last-ditch effort to shatter a media icon? Would an immediate, transparent decision on biological verification be the most effective move for the Sussex side to protect their reputation, or is silence at this moment the deeper strategy? And as for the prince, the man standing at the center of the storm, is he the keeper of a great secret, or is he himself a tragic figure still searching for the answer to his own life? This information is for reference only, based on hypotheses, rumors, and unverified public opinions. Let's discuss this issue from an objective, analytical perspective. Don't stay on the sidelines in the shadows of curiosity. Share your thoughts right below in the comments. Press 1 if you believe these secrets need to be brought into the open. Press 0 if you remain skeptical and think this is merely a political chess game. Your support is the motivation that keeps us going. Don't forget to like and subscribe to join us on this journey of unraveling the truth behind power and legacy. H. In the world of symbols and heritage, sometimes silence carries more weight than 1,000 words. We are witnessing a historical split, not just within a family, but within the very concept of power in this new era. On one side is the dazzling light of the media, where personal stories are woven into focal points. On the other is the stillness of London's ancient walls, where chess pieces are being set for a future longer than any television contract. Numerous observers suggest that Prince William is exhibiting the demeanor of a chief architect of the future. Instead of reacting to the onslaught of public opinion, he chooses to strengthen the foundations of the institution. The question now is no longer, will it happen, but when is the optimal time? Redefining titles is not merely an individual act, but a symbolic restructuring. In an era of transparency, possessing a title is no longer seen as an immutable privilege, but a responsibility tied to genuine dedication. Across the ocean, we see a familiar motif, the clamor of press releases and the relentless pursuit of prominence in the global news flow. However, there is a systemic truth that few mention titles within a dynasty are not mere ornaments to be possessed. They are the very breath of tradition. When direct blood ties are no longer the sole basis, the distinction between heir and companion becomes more pronounced than ever in ancient ceremonial rules. While the world is preoccupied with analyzing dramatic interviews and memoirs in London, a new blueprint for the monarchy is emerging. These are not petty debates. This is the transformation of an institution to adapt to the 21st century. With a single signature, the structure of a millennia-old heritage can be rewritten, discarding elements no longer relevant to safeguard the overall existence. Will individual freedom or family duty prevail on this chessboard of power? The answer lies in patience, for in the game of dynasties, the winner is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the last one standing when the spotlight fades. While the outside world is awash in sensational headlines behind the solid oak doors of Kensington and Clarence House, a different script is being rewritten. No cameras, no bombastic pronouncements, just strategic records and quiet discussions that have dragged on for years. To understand what is truly happening, we must look into the intellectual divide between the two generations of top leadership, the current crown holder and his successor. King Charles, as a conciliatory father and monarch, always believed in second chances. His philosophy was one of tolerance, an attempt to mend rifts with afternoon tea and patience. He saw the prodigal sons, but Prince William saw the systemic risks. William arrived at a far more stoic and realistic conclusion. Institutions cannot exist based on emotions. In the eyes of the successor, protecting the millennia-old heritage is the ultimate priority, transcending all personal feelings. What is being quietly built is not a plan for revenge, but rather a self-defense mechanism. William understood that when a name tied to traditional values is used as a commercial tool, from podcasts to book covers, its sanctity is eroded. The precedent was there. What had happened to previous members of the family was proof of the system's resolve. This wasn't revenge, but a revolution, necessary surgery to ensure the purity of future leadership. There was a pivotal moment in those private conversations where William bluntly pointed out that ill-timed benevolence could become a vulnerability for widespread instability. He believed that to protect the monarchy from media attacks and destructive revelations, they could not continue to remain silent in the old ways. This contrast created tremendous pressure on all parties involved. Across the ocean, resistance was understandable, for when symbols of power are shaken, the structure of personal influence crumbles with them. The history of monarchies has always been a process of purification for survival. William is playing a game of chess where he has already moved many steps ahead. This is a battle between one side that wants to preserve unity through affection and the other that wants to maintain dignity through discipline. Ultimately, time will tell, can an institution survive if it does not dare to let go of the parts that are no longer compatible. We are drawing closer to the point where the line between family unity and the survival of an institution becomes clearer than ever. King Charles, with the heart of a father, sees the cracks that need to be filled with kindness. He sees individuals' memories and hopes for reconciliation. But on the opposite side, Prince William sees a system error. In the successor's thinking, this is not a matter of emotion, but a model being exploited, eroding the foundations built over thousands of years of history. Construction workers. Construction. William isn't waiting for the future. He's shaping it right now. Behind the velvet curtains lies a strategic council, not a group of fleeting crisis management experts, but constitutional historians and masters of political science. They are the ones who understand the concept to its core. Authority. Their mission to draft a comprehensive framework to protect the monarchy from the upheavals of the new era. This wasn't an immediate response to a documentary or a memoir, but a complete overhaul of the British royal operating system. A new charter is gradually emerging with non-negotiable rules. William wants to eliminate the ambiguity that has existed for too long. He aims for a system where titles and privileges are not gifts of blood, but rewards of service. The line will be redrawn sharply. You cannot simultaneously possess the dignity of a national symbol and freely operate it as a personal brand in the commercial market. If you choose independence and glamorous contracts, that's your right, but you will no longer be part of the symbol machine. William's plan was revolutionary because it shifted power back to the incumbent monarch through clear legal mechanisms. The decision of who stayed and who left would not be based on anger or personal feelings, but on a single criterion: commitment. This has been done historically for individuals who damage the public goodwill, and now it's been standardized into an operating procedure. Once you step outside to pursue your own values, you'll have to shed the protective coat of royalty. This battle isn't just about titles on paper, but about redefining what it means to be a member of royalty in the 21st century. William is building a legal fortress to ensure that whoever comes and goes, the institution will remain. As the spotlight fades, what remains is not personal squabbles, but a purified system ready for the challenges of the future. In the philosophy of ancient dynasties, there is a harsh truth. When you step through the gates to seek personal freedom, the glory of the institution will not follow you. Remember, in the philosophy of thousand-year dynasties, once you choose to step outside in search of freedom, the halo of heritage will never follow you. Facing these cold yet visionary maneuvers, how do you feel about Prince William's actions? If you support this decisiveness and believe it is a vital step to protect the legacy, leave a number 2 in the comments. If you feel these rules are too harsh and lack compassion for family, leave a number 5. We look forward to seeing your choice in the comments below. Prince William's entire vision is encapsulated in one powerful idea. If a symbol belonged to everyone, it would lose its meaning to everyone. The power of a dynasty lies in its uniqueness. Once its noble title is juxtaposed with consumer goods or social media posts, its sacred value vanishes. a constitutional legacy turned into an entertainment accessory. William did not act out of anger or personal vendetta. He is acting as a strategist, looking 50, 100, or even 200 years into the future. The question he is asking is not how to please all family members, but rather, what does this institution need to survive in the future? His answer was the limitations. The boundaries were clear, strictly enforced, and non-negotiable. To achieve this, a strategic brain was established drawing on models from Nordic monarchies such as Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands, places that successfully modernized by streamlining their bureaucracy and redefining the value of service. This is the biggest difference between the present and the past. While King Charles always sought a compromise, a balance between family ties and responsibility, William's approach was binary, in or out. According to him, this is not a family company where members can join or withdraw according to their personal lifestyles. It is an institution with a supreme purpose. All participants must be fully committed or completely separate. There is no room for half-hearted solutions where people want to enjoy the privileges of the crown while simultaneously pursuing private commercial deals. In the face of attempts to maintain power through legal means or media, the new system William is building is creating a constitutional fortress. When rules are codified and based on the principle of service, any individual resistance becomes insignificant in the face of institutional weight. The truth is, the world may change, but the essence of monarchical authority always demands a sacrifice of the ego for the common good. We are witnessing the birth of a new era, an era where glory is not measured by media fame, but by unwavering adherence to core values. William is proving that to protect a crown, sometimes one must learn to say no decisively, because ultimately only what is truly pure can endure the test of time. There is a truth that the media often overlooks: glittering titles never belong to a specific individual. They are not inherited property or permanent possessions. In the structure of the British monarchy, every title is borrowed from the throne. When the connection to the source of power is shaken, those titles can return to where they originated. This is not a typical property dispute, but the reclamation of constitutional symbols. In the world of administrative procedures, there is a term that sounds dry but carries immense weight: letters patent, royal patent. Don't let the name fool you. This is essentially a supreme executive decree of the monarch. No noisy parliamentary votes, no complicated referendums. With just a carefully drafted document and the signature of the head of the monarchy, the entire power structure, the order of succession, and royal membership can be fundamentally altered. This is the most powerful tool, allowing the king to redefine his common home in an instant. To understand this power, we must go back in time to 1917. Amidst the upheavals of the era, King George V recognized a paradox: the proliferation of titles was diluting the value of the royal family. Distant relatives' branches, no longer contributing to the common good, were still holding these prestigious titles. With historical determination, he issued a decree to narrow the list of those called prince and princess. This was not personal animosity, but a campaign, refining symbols to protect the prestige of the Windsor family. History is witnessing a repetition of that mindset in the new era. Amidst speculation about legal battles or intentions of resistance, there is an invisible but solid barrier: royal privileges. once a decree has been issued based on long-standing constitutional rules. Any individual attempts at litigation are often rendered ineffective against the will of the monarchy. Disputes over names or membership are no longer matters of emotion, but of formal legal documents. A lack of understanding of these mechanisms sometimes leads to illusions of power that are unrealistically impossible to fulfill. Eventually, the media frenzy would die down, leaving only the archived documents in the National Archives. William and his strategic council understood power lay not in debate, but in wielding the pen that wrote the rules. Once the decree was signed, history would turn a new page, and those who failed to adapt to the new rules would become mere footnotes in the flow of time. In the world of long-established institutions, seismic changes rarely came from public debates or noisy elections. It comes from the stillness of the pen. A group of people might be considered representatives of a dynasty in the morning, but by afternoon that position may be a thing of the past. This is the privilege of supremacy. No approval needed, just a signed decision, and the course of history will change. Many sources suggest that a strategic update lies in the archives of Kensington Palace, awaiting its moment of realization. This draft carries a simple yet revolutionary message. Titles are associated with dedication. Only those who are truly present and serve the institution full-time are allowed to wear the official emblems. The rest will be returned to the warmth of their families, but no longer as representatives of the nation. This is a step aimed at protecting the rarity and value of the royal brand in the 21st century. Imagine the power of a title. For individuals who have built entire personal empires on a single word such as Duchess, stripping them of official recognition is a devastating blow. Identity reconstruction thoroughly. When institutional backing disappears, that title is no longer a magic key to unlocking doors of power or multi-million-dollar contracts. It becomes a ceremonial title lacking the weight of legitimacy. In the world of high-level partnerships, the difference between official representative and related party is a chasm of value. Every speech, every production project, or every international event we see largely revolves around royal appearances. But what happens when the energy supplying that aura is cut off? When an individual abandons their status to seek independence, they inadvertently put themselves to a harsh market test. Is personal value great enough to survive without the shadow of the crown? William understood this better than anyone. He didn't need to fight. He simply needed to clarify the boundaries. Look at what has been built. From audio programs called archetypes to literary works signed with a prestigious title. In the world of influence, every speech, every appearance, and every branding deal is anchored to a single pillar of support. Title. It's not just a name, it's a master key that unlocks doors that an ordinary celebrity could hardly reach. But what happens if that support suddenly disappears? Imagine a new reality when the signboards at international events only display a personal name without the backing of a crown. The entertainment world is inherently pragmatic in its calculations of value. They don't just pay for fame, they pay for value, exclusive and legitimate. Without those sacred words, would the allure remain intact? Fame may be brilliant, but it is often fleeting, while an institution thousands of years old possesses the power of permanence. When the radiance is cut off from its roots, the foundation of an entire personal empire will begin to show cracks in its values. Prince William did not act in ambiguity. He had deeply studied how neighboring dynasties adapted to the times. One particular case caught his attention: Queen Margrethe II's decisiveness in Denmark. With a single statement, she streamlined the monarchy by revoking the titles of her own nephews. Her reasoning was clear. The monarchy needed clarity of roles, not the chaos of symbols without accountability. William observed how the world reacted, how public opinion stabilized, and how the Danish monarchy became lean and stable. It's definitely better after that surgery. The confidence of the British heir to the throne stems from understanding that preserving a great heritage sometimes requires making difficult decisions. Restructuring doesn't necessarily have to be a dramatic face-to-face confrontation. It can unfold quietly through official channels, yet its impact can be transformative. When the rules of legitimacy are enforced, the line between a person of royal lineage and one media star, it will become unmistakable. History has proven that the longest-lasting institutions are not the most rigid, but those that adapt before being forced to. Prince William learned a valuable lesson from the northern dynasties. Decisiveness doesn't need to be accompanied by noise. In Denmark, a symbolic transfer of power took place quietly, decisively, and without compromise. The goal wasn't to please everyone, but to protect the centralization and transparency of the royal family. When the lines are redrawn, the gray area of privileges without accompanying responsibilities will be completely eliminated. While London is quietly building a legal fortress across the Atlantic, alarm bells have begun to ring. Terms like restructuring or title reform are no longer whispers in palace corridors, but have become an existential threat to a functioning media empire. Realizing that their foundation depended entirely on their connection with the royal court, a bold strategy was devised: commercializing the sacred. The idea of turning a royal title into a trademark began to take shape, an attempt to transform national heritage into corporate assets existing independently of the will of the crown. This was an unprecedented confrontation in history. One side viewed the title as service to the Constitution. One side considers it as brand identity. If a title is registered as intellectual property, it becomes a business tool, a legal entity beyond the control of the monarchy. But can a signature on commercial paper replace the weight of thousands of years of tradition? William and his constitutional experts are facing a thorny question. How can we prevent the transformation of a national symbol into a personal marketing tool without creating a global legal crisis? William understood that the power of the monarchy lay in its monopoly on legitimacy. Once you allow a family member to privatize a title for commercial purposes, you inadvertently open the door to the disintegration of the symbol. His answer remained consistent: clarity. There are no middle ground. You can't be both a businessman running a global brand and a representative of the monarchy. This separation is necessary to protect public trust and the sanctity of the heritage. This battle isn't just about titles on book covers or podcasts. It's a battle to redefine the value of honor in the 21st century. When strategic plans clash with commercial ambitions, what ultimately remains will be what is most authentic. History will remember those who dared to draw painful lines to protect the whole, rather than those who sought to possess a piece of the spotlight for themselves. In the game of symbols, the final piece always belongs to the one who holds the power of legitimacy. In an attempt to secure the future, a purely commercial idea was proposed, trademarking a royal title. The goal was clear: to transform a noble title into a business asset, a brand that could be protected by civil law. However, in the world of monarchies, applying a checkerboard mentality to a national-level chess game was a systemic mistake. They forgot that only the crown has the right to decide what belongs to it. Before the initial paperwork was even completed, the palace was a step ahead. Without any public debate, Prince William's advisors had established a legal, protective perimeter. They had quietly activated stringent regulations regarding the use of the royal title for commercial purposes. All escape routes were blocked, all loopholes closed. This was not an immediate reaction, but the result of a methodological study by leading historians and strategists. The message from Kensington Palace was very strong: the crown of bestowal and the crown of control. You can't take a piece of an institution, take it out into the world, and turn it into a personal business tool. William demonstrated a completely new style of leadership, far removed from the diplomatic finesse of the previous generation. He didn't seek compromise. He redrawn the lines with permanent ink where there was no room for alternatives or half-hearted negotiations. Most remarkably, William's team didn't need to create new rules. They simply activated rituals and precedents that had existed for centuries. By deeply understanding the existing system, they transformed ancient rules into the most powerful modern tools. They were prepared for every situation, every reaction, and every legal loophole. While their opponents were still grappling with the concept of trademarks, the dynasty had already asserted ultimate ownership of its own history. Throughout a millennium, the monarchy has faced countless tests of power. Every time it was challenged, the system did not collapse, but instead gave rise to new self-defense mechanisms. What Prince William is currently implementing is, in essence, a renaissance of old values within a modern context. Without needing to invent new laws, he and his team are simply dusting off long-standing protocols, rules that had been forgotten but still carry the primal weight of legitimacy. This approach possesses a brilliant strategic quality. Change is not presented as an act of punishment or a personal confrontation, but rather as a process of transformation, modernization, and streamlining. Who can object to clarity? Who can resist making an institution more transparent and fit for the 21st century? By firmly linking every decision to the flow of tradition, William created an impenetrable shield. You cannot challenge an institution when it is operating according to the very rules that have sustained its existence for generations. After years of turmoil and relentless media attention, the palace is now enveloped in a completely different atmosphere: confident stillness. The defensive, passive attitude has vanished, replaced by a proactive and visionary demeanor. Even the most discerning observers must acknowledge that this is a strategic move at the highest level. There are no more public debates, no more emotionally charged counter-messages. The institution has chosen a dignified silence as its response to all the external noise. William has proven that he is no longer someone waiting for his turn. He is truly leading and reshaping the monarchy right now. With his dignity above the noise mindset, he has transformed challenges into opportunities to renew the entire system. His patience and methodology have created a sharper, more focused, and more purposeful entity. While personal stories continue to unfold in the newspapers under changed conditions, the crown has completed its self-purification to stand firm against the tide of time. When the oak doors close and the mystique of royalty is no longer included as part of the brand's gift package, an existential question arises. Where does the true value of an individual lie when separated from the cradle of institution? In the chambers of power of the elite, what remains of the invitation, when the strength of millennia of history is no longer a foundation? This is not a personal attack, but a harsh test of self-reliance. The crown doesn't need to be destroyed because it possesses the most powerful weapon, time and evolution. It doesn't need dramatic confrontations or noisy acts of retaliation. Instead, it chooses to adapt using the very systems that have sustained its position for 10 centuries to address modern challenges. This is the operation of a machine refined by blood and fire, knowing how to turn every upheaval into a springboard for survival. While the world was captivated by the hype and sensational headlines, a long-term game was underway. William and his strategic team proved an enduring truth. Real power doesn't belong to the person who speaks the loudest in the room, but to the person who understands the system best. They aren't building sandcastles on media, they're forging foundations of steel. The heir's confidence doesn't come from fleeting fame, but from mastering the operational codes of an empire that will never sink. The crown doesn't need to destroy anyone. It just needs to patiently wait until the rules of the institution fulfill their mission. Now the moment of waiting has ended. The plan of the chief architect, the one who holds power in the shadows of silence, is gradually becoming a reality. A new era has begun where legitimacy is paramount, and what doesn't belong to the foundation will automatically be filtered out by the currents of history. Ultimately, the biggest question remains: as the borrowed glory of the crown fades, what will truly remain behind the titles? The British monarchy doesn't need to speak out to assert its power. It simply lets the system operate according to the iron laws of history. Prince William has proven that in the game of symbols, the winner isn't the one who makes the most noise, but the one who knows how to preserve legitimacy amidst the storms of the times. Is this a necessary reconstruction to protect a millennium-old heritage, or a harsh step for those who have chosen their own path? We'd really love to hear your perspective. Do you side with King Charles's tolerance, or do you support Prince William's steel discipline? This is for reference only based on unverified hypotheses, rumors, and public opinion. Let's discuss this from an objective analytical standpoint. Don't just sit there, interact with me. Press 1 for curiosity and 0 for skepticism. Hit like and subscribe so we can uncover the truth behind the curtains together. London, early 2026. Before the first rays of sunlight reached Big Ben, a strange atmosphere seemed to envelop Clarence House. Unverified information was stirring up public opinion about a pivotal decision that could change the course of one of the world's most prestigious families. Instead of the usual social news, insiders were questioning the temporary suspension of an inheritance distribution process related to Princess Diana's estate. Was this merely a simple administrative procedure or the activation of a protective mechanism established decades earlier? In the world of strict royal rules, the existence of a sealed will has always been the subject of speculation. An abstract concept has begun to emerge: the third clause. According to several theories put forward by analysts, this clause doesn't focus on political upheavals or media attention, but rather seems to point to a more fundamental value: the integrity of the lineage. If this scenario is true, then activating it signals that the institution is facing a potentially structurally destabilizing event rather than just a media frenzy. All attention is now focused on a shocking theory, the emergence of a 29-year-old woman referred to online by mysterious initials. Is there a connection between the present and the late 1990s, when personal secrets were often obscured by the glitz and glamour of the stage? Unofficial sources suggest that a handwritten letter from 1996, allegedly from the late princess, unexpectedly surfaced after an internal audit. If the rumors are true, that letter contains prophecies of divided bloodlines and a crown shaken by seduction. This is a dramatic fictional scenario, a mother seeking to protect her children from dangers she foresaw decades ago. While London is reeling from legal scrutiny in West Hollywood, tense moments seem to be unfolding between the main characters of this story. Images of a thick stack of documents and stunned faces have left the public wondering, is it time for a long dormant truth to be revealed? The silence from those involved often provides fertile ground for theories to develop. Could it be that a discreet settlement failed to reach a consensus, leading to the issuance of an asset freeze as a last resort? We are facing an investigation into traditional values, truth, and heritage. These are just pieces of a larger picture, and we have only seen the tip of the iceberg. Is this a necessary purge to protect legitimacy, or merely a compounding of misunderstandings within a family already fraught with turmoil, and in a world where information is constantly changing? Do you think the ultimate truth is as important as the choices we make about what we believe? Leave your thoughts in the comment section, and we'll analyze them further in the following developments. Amidst the media storm, a statement rang out, not with the clamor of a fame-seeker, but with an unusually calm demeanor. The central figure in this controversy did not mention the crown, nor did she refer to the figures in the trust funds. Instead, she emphasized a fundamental human right, the right to know one's origins. The information circulating describes a decades-long quest for the truth. I just want the truth to be acknowledged. A simple statement, yet one that carries immense weight, capable of shaking even the most impregnable palace walls. In the age of technology, theories don't just remain words. Observers are buzzing about the existence of a document supposedly showing the results of genetic analysis from a renowned expert at UCLA. If the parameters of 99.98% similarity are accurate, we are no longer simply dealing with a fabricated story, but with a real threat. Biological evidence. It's very challenging. Why would such a crucial document surface at this sensitive time? Is it a mere coincidence of fate, or the result of a carefully planned effort to bring an old secret to light? The investigation takes us back in time to 1995 to 1996, a period when archivists and insiders were scrutinizing every millimeter of the protagonist's timeline. A ceremonial event in Chicago sealed files from ecclesiastical institutions in the Vatican. Theories suggest there were media lulls during this period, coinciding with the time a baby girl was allegedly born in Oak Park, Illinois. If we connect these ambiguities, a completely different picture of the past gradually emerges. It raises a major question about consistency in the public records of celebrities. Can we ever truly know everything about someone's past, no matter how long they've been in the spotlight? Deep within the sealed archives of the Vatican, there are reports suggesting the existence of a file from 1997, a request to revoke past commitments. Theories are circulating about the presence of an unidentified entity within these ecclesiastical documents. If these clues to the past are real, they are not simply old pages of paper. They pose a perplexing puzzle: moral trust and transparency. In the world of royal protocol and international law, inconsistencies between public records and personal reality can have consequences that extend far beyond a simple family dispute. It touches upon the very foundations of immigration regulations, prenuptial agreements, and the legitimacy of a long-standing institution. Deep within the sealed archives of the Vatican, there are rumors of a record from 1997, an application to annul past commitments. Theories are circulating about the presence of an unidentified element within these ecclesiastical documents. If these clues to the past are real, they are not simply old pages. They pose a perplexing puzzle: moral trust and transparency. In the world of royal protocol and international law, inconsistencies between public records and personal reality can have far-reaching consequences extending beyond a simple family dispute. It touches upon the very foundations of immigration regulations, prenuptial agreements, and the legitimacy of long-established institutions. Why is verifying ancestry so crucial? The answer likely lies in the spirit of third clause. This is part of Princess Diana's will. From a hypothetical analysis perspective, inheritance is not just about material possessions, but about the clarity of bloodline. Once doubt is sown, it has the potential to undermine the validity of any claims related to trust funds. This is no longer a battle of the present, but a battle to protect the authenticity of the lineage against unforeseen variables. On January 16th, a blurry video clip allegedly filmed at a West Hollywood cafe caused an online uproar. These images captured not just a conversation, but a fierce clash between two worldviews. Through analysis of body language, one side showed panic, while the other displayed extreme tension. The fragmented words are believed to have appeared in that space. The truth was there before it began. Good, the future of the next generation. While the authenticity of the conversation remains questionable, the emotions emanating from those frames are undeniable. Could the black file the woman carries be the key to unlocking the Diana Protection Fund, a fund currently frozen in a terrifying silence? The character codenamed AM, though never appearing directly on screen, has become the focus of a global investigation. We are witnessing the most serious legal and ethical reckoning in decades. Is this a perfectly orchestrated move to redefine power, or the inevitable resurgence of a truth that has been suppressed for too long? If you held the black file, would you choose to release it to seek justice, or keep it secret to protect the peace of a family? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and follow so we can get to the bottom of this investigation in the next part. In the corridors of British justice, a legal case has just been filed, not seeking glamorous titles or material compensation, but aiming for a more abstract goal: recognition of bloodline. If this request is granted, it will create an unprecedented precedent, placing a missing piece right at the heart of the royal succession diagram. The existence of the figure codenamed AM is not just a personal story. It is an entity capable of changing the entire trajectory of the Sussex family. The emergence of these streams of information seems to have created an emotional storm for those involved. There are reports of mental instability, self-reflection on the past, and doubts about the authenticity of seemingly predetermined events. Meanwhile, the absolute silence from the central figure Meghan Markle is being scrutinized by analysts. Is this a tactical move to observe her opponent, or is it confusion in the face of a truth that is gradually emerging? On January 17, 2026, a brief news item in the official Vatican newspaper attracted the attention of royal legal scholars. Despite being written in coded and cautious language, the announcement appears to confirm the preservation of documents relating to discussions from 1995 to 1996. Why would a powerful religious institution like the Vatican retain the spiritual anxieties of the late Princess Diana? Theories are connecting details about a blind Tibetan mystic and warnings about a turbulent future for Harry. Could what we are witnessing today have been foreseen over 30 years ago in a secret meeting between humanitarian groups? Faced with undeniable pressure, the Royal Medical Ethics Council appears to be considering a scenario previously considered impossible, demanding independent verification of biological records. This has been described as a last resort to protect the legitimacy of the royal institution. A truth-checking is underway where traditional values confront modern scientific evidence and prophecies from the past. We live in a time when history is no longer a collection of old pages, but a living entity demanding transparency. From secret Vatican files to a mother's handwritten letters worrying about her child, every path leads to one ultimate question: does truth always bring liberation? Or does it sometimes foreshadow a greater downfall? Do you believe in factual scientific evidence or spiritual warnings preserved for decades? Deep within royal history, the late Princess Diana's secret anxieties about what she called a divided lineage are often mentioned. There are theories that after her meeting with an Eastern mystic, she left behind two important documents. If one was kept by her loyal butler, the other is believed to have lain untouched in the apostolic archives in Rome for decades. The contents of the document, titled "Secret Letters Sent Through the Air," are becoming the focus of speculation. The prophetic passages about outward appearances concealing true nature and those who attempt to grasp the crown without its bloodline are sending shivers down the spines of observers. Although the Holy See has not officially confirmed it, the recent opening of rare archives for legal investigations demonstrates the seriousness of the matter. The investigation appears to have extended beyond religious documents to include security matters. Sources suggest that special surveillance protocols have been set up to review the period from 1995 to 1998 in Meghan Markle's life, a period now considered a golden opportunity to unravel mysteries. What is being discovered has the potential to shake the entire media landscape of the Sussexes. The key point lies in a figure from Pennsylvania who is believed to have had a close connection with her in the mid-1990s. Has an old chapter in her life been forgotten, or is it shrouded in a thick fog of privacy? Why have rumors of a past ritual suddenly resurfaced so strongly? The answer likely lies not in ordinary civil records, but in forgotten papers within church institutions. Theories are centering on a request to annul a marriage commitment sealed in 1997 in Chicago. If these documents truly exist and confirm a contradictory lifestyle and the presence of previously undisclosed personal elements, it would completely alter the definition of transparency for modern members of royalty. We stand before a labyrinth of sealed files, prophecies from the past, and high-level security investigations. Each piece unearthed leads us to a deeper question of identity and truth. Should we believe what is presented on camera or the coded messages preserved in handwritten letters from 3 decades ago? If Diana's prophecies are true, are we witnessing the beginning of a downfall or a necessary purge for the future of the crown? According to the strict regulations of ecclesiastical law, sensitive files concerning influential figures are often forwarded to Rome for processing at the highest level. Among these documents, the existence of a confidentiality request is mentioned, a plea for the confidentiality of personal information, because those involved are likely to face the public eye. The issue here is not about the rightness or wrongness of a personal choice, but about the compatible with traditional rules. In the world of royalty, transparency is not just a virtue, but a legally binding requirement.